fascinating tale of comradeship. Remarkable stories of ordinary men in extraordinary times. Now TV presents HBO Originals Band of Brothers. Thursday night at 10:30 on ViuTV6.
Like other global economies, we will have a high-speed railway that will serve generations to come. The Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail Link will open in 2018, reducing rail journey times to mainland cities by more than half, and boosting exchanges in tourism, commerce, professional services, education and culture. The link will also build closer bonds between people and strengthen Hong Kong's role as a regional transport hub. Better connections unleash endless potential.
Good evening, I'm Diane in Hong Kong, and you're watching ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. High Court throws out case against the government's joint checkpoint for Express Rail Link, with the judge calling it clearly premature. Day 2 of ex-leader Donald Tsang's graft trial. Prosecutors say the case is about corruption at the very top of government. And Hong Kong's economic edge. The city soars up the rankings as one of the world's most competitive markets. Good evening. Our top story. The High Court has rejected a request to challenge the government's joint immigration plans for the cross-border express rail link. The judge said a judicial review now would be clearly premature because the proposal is still at an intermediate stage. A group of 5 people had applied for permission to fight the co-location plan in court, arguing that it goes against the basic law. This comes after the government proposed in July to lease out part of the West Kowloon terminus, effectively allowing mainland officials to enforce national laws on Hong Kong soil. The court also ordered the applicants to pay all related legal fees.
If we apply too late, the court would say the central government's already agreed to the proposal and the Hong Kong government can't intervene in central government business. And so we wouldn't be granted leave to apply for the judicial review either. So basically, we just can't get permission for the judicial review. It's either too early or it's too late.
Well, it was day 2 of former Chief Executive Donald Tsang's bribery retrial. Prosecutors said the case is about corruption at the very top of the Hong Kong government, involving integrity, honesty and standard of conduct in public life. That's as they laid out allegations against the man who used to be fondly known as Bowtie for his choice of attire. The 72-year-old is accused of accepting free renovations of a Shenzhen penthouse from property tycoon Bill Wong as an advantage for granting Wong's company a radio license. Prosecutors urged the jury to apply common sense and think about why Tsang hid his deal with Wong from the Executive Council and the public. The case continues tomorrow. To the latest on the deadly coach crash in Guangdong's Nansha that killed 2 people from Hong Kong. The Travel Industry Council says a local travel agency involved in the accident is suspected of making a false insurance statement. According to the council, Big Line Holiday falsely claimed on its promotional leaflet that the tour was a package covered by an accident contingency fund. It said the agency may have breached the travel agent's ordinance as the tour is not qualified for the fund. Big Line Holiday said it may have made a mistake in the wording on the leaflet, but rejected claims the agency tried to deceive customers. To some good news for workers in Hong Kong. Latest figures coming from the city's mandatory pension scheme shows its returns have beaten inflation since its launch in December 2000. According to the MPF authority, the scheme's annualized return rate has hit 4.3% after taking out fees and expenses. Average yearly inflation was 1.8% over the same period of time. And calculating the fund's total assets as of end July, each member of the scheme has on average $180,000. That's 15% more than at the end of last year. Elsewhere now, and a Thai court today slapped ousted Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra with 5 years in prison for negligence in managing a rice subsidy scheme. But she won't be sleeping in a cell tonight. Yingluck is believed to have fled to Dubai, where her brother, former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, owns a home. After sweeping to power in 2011, Yingluck introduced this rice subsidy scheme, which was wildly popular with farmers. But the military government, which ousted her in 2014, says it caused billions of dollars in losses. Bangkok-based reporter Amy Lefebvre said few expect her to return.
We still don't have a clear signal from her Pheu Thai party on this, and also from Yingluck herself. She's been silent for the last 30 days or so. But one would imagine that she won't return to Thailand to serve the sentence, and that we'll have to wait until the case expires or another scenario presents itself. She may seek asylum elsewhere, but her whereabouts at the moment are unknown.
Now, elsewhere in the region, Human Rights Watch has accused Myanmar of committing crimes against humanity in its campaign against Muslim insurgents in Rakhine State. The rights group is demanding the UN impose sanctions and an arms embargo against Naypyidaw. Myanmar's government rejects the accusations, saying there's no evidence to back it up. But Human Rights Watch said its research, supported by satellite imagery, had found crimes of forced population transfers, murder and rape. Over in Indonesia, fears that a volcano could erupt imminently on the holiday island of Bali has prompted several countries to issue travel warnings. As Samantha Vardas reports, Indonesian authorities are racing to evacuate tens of thousands of people living in the danger zone.
As Mount Agung continues to spew menacing smoke over the Indonesian island of Bali, those on the ground fear the volcano could blow at any time. More than 75,000 people have now been evacuated from the danger zone as strong tremors rumble underground.
The seismic activity of Mount Agung is still high and its status remains at a dangerous level.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo has met with evacuees seeking shelter in makeshift camps like town halls and school gyms where communities are providing food and water. The president urged residents to follow official instructions after reports some were reluctant to leave their homes. Meanwhile, several other countries, including Australia and the US, have been issuing travel warnings, alerting holidaymakers to the risk. Indonesia sits on the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire and has nearly 130 active volcanoes, more than any other country. Mount Agung's latest rumbles are a spine-chilling reminder for some locals. It erupted around 50 years ago, killing more than 1,000 people.
All right, coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Well, upbeat numbers from China have boosted investor confidence, driving Hong Kong's market higher. The Hang Seng Index rose nearly 0.5%. The rally was led by buoyant resources stocks, riding on a 24% rise in annual profits for mainland industrial firms. Investors also swarmed to buy up locally listed shares in state-owned shipbuilder CSSC Offshore and Marine Engineering. It soared 16% on news of a potential restructure. It's hard to imagine in this property market, but Hong Kong's iconic Excelsior Hotel can't find a buyer. Its owner, Mandarin Oriental, has been forced to pull the sale of the waterfront building in Causeway Bay, saying none of the offers met expectations. It'll now review all options, including redeveloping it into a commercial property. That 869-room hotel was said to be valued at up to $34 billion. Shares in Mandarin Oriental plunged as much as 32% on the announcement. Hong Kong's economy is proving its resilience, now ranked the world's 6th most competitive. It's moved up 3 spots in the World Economic Forum's latest survey, leapfrogging Japan. Switzerland's taken top spot for the 9th year running, while the US climbed over Singapore to take 2nd place. Now, on top of this, the Asian Development Bank is banking on significant growth for Hong Kong, revising its GDP prediction from 2% to 3.6%. Now, on that note, some good news, especially for startups and SMEs here. Chief Executive Carrie Lam wants to cut profits tax. Here's her plan.
In order to do it without changing our very simple tax system, is likely to take this form. That is, for the first 2 million of profits of every business, we will charge a rate lower than 16.5%. I have suggested 10%, and I'm working very hard to see whether I can go lower than 10%.
Now, after delving into wealth management, Alibaba is further expanding its empire. The Chinese e-commerce giant has taken control of logistics unit Cainiao, promising to help it build a global network. Laura Figbrook reports.
Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba continues its bid to expand overseas, taking control of parcel tracking firm Cainiao with an $800 million investment. It now owns 51% of the firm it co-founded in 2013 and plans to spend $15 billion over 5 years building a global logistics network. Alibaba is seeking to expand its e-commerce and logistics network outside of China. It recently announced direct sales channels in Indonesia, Thailand and the Philippines through a $2 billion investment in the online retailer Lazada Group. Analysts see no end to the domination of Jack Ma's Alibaba, especially now it's taken control of Cainiao. The network oversees roughly 57 million deliveries a day in 152 different countries.
Now, the CEO of Equifax, a company hit by one of the biggest cyber attacks the U.S. has seen, is retiring effective immediately. Richard Smith was at the helm when hackers broke into the company's database, exposing details of more than 140 million Americans. Fred Karayama has more.
Equifax Chief Executive Officer Richard Smith retired Tuesday. He's also losing his annual bonus. This following a massive data breach into the company's database that exposed personal information of 143 million Americans. The announcement comes a week before Smith is scheduled to testify about the hack before Congress. He's still expected to show up. The Federal Trade Commission and FBI are also looking into the breach. Nearly 40 states have joined a probe of how Equifax handled the situation. Legal expert Michael Berg.
They didn't do anything to protect the consumers and all their information. That's number one. Number two, they attempted to keep people from being able to sue them by having these incredibly horrible provisions within their contract that'll keep people from being able to sue them on a class action. Now, they've tried to back off on at least part of that, but I don't think that will work. Number three is that I'm not sure he did, but I know many insiders sold their stock after they knew of the original cyber breach. And that's just using inside information for their own benefit while they're leaving the consumer and the injured people out there to fend for themselves.
Equifax shares were down on the news. They've fallen more than 30% since the disclosure of the breach.
Well, in the spirit of Twitter, we'll try and keep this last story brief, but the social network's days of short messages may be numbered. It's testing a new character limit, doubling the number from 140 to 280. Random users will be given the chance to take advantage of longer posts. Twitter insists its emphasis on brevity will never change, but admits it can take quite a lot of effort to cram thoughts into a single tweet. Well, I did count earlier. That's exactly 40 kofeifes. All right, now time for a break, but stay with us because coming up, it's one thing to eat at your desk, but this office lunch